Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our Food for Life series. This is Veganuary, and this is our final edition of our discussions with people who are friends of Outside Lives, who have made small changes to their diet over the years to become a little bit more conscious and plant-based in their approaches. Not everybody is exclusively doing Veganuary. Not everyone is vegan, but we're all making small changes to see if we can improve our health and improve the decisions that we make about what we purchase. The final conversation that we're going to have is with a friend of Outside Lives, Stu Applewhite. So welcome, Stu.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm just going to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind, about your current diet and how it's evolved recently and over the years, and just find out a little bit more about kind of some of the changes that you've been making.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
What would you say your current diet is? What does it consist of?
Well, as you know, Kat's vegan, so I guess currently, as we're in Veganuary, I've gone meat-free for the month, which I've never been able to say that before. My diet's normally consists of a lot of meat products, so I haven't gone strictly vegan. Mainly, the only thing that really I've cheated on, if that's the right word, is probably around chocolate. You get so much chocolate for Christmas, don't you? That it's in the house, it's everywhere. So I haven't given that up. But other than that, I don't eat a lot of dairy anyway, for reasons I'll probably talk about a bit later. And I've cooked meat out for January, and it's going quite well.
Brilliant.
I'm not finding it difficult at all.
You're not finding it difficult. Well, that's the main thing. And I think what we're trying to do here is, you're not saying that anybody has to go 100% plant-based or vegan. It really is just about making the odds change. And if you can change one thing throughout Veganuary, and even just trial one meal, you've made progress, which is brilliant. But I agree, there's definitely still lots of chocolate in our house as well. So we're still working our way through some of those too. How would you say that your diet's changed over the years, do you think, Stu? And are there any reasons for that? Probably being married to a vegan helps.
that definitely helped. So I suppose, going back to childhood, my diet was largely based around a meat product, a potato product, and some kind of vegetable, which was normally baked beans. So sausage, chips, and beans was a typical meal in our house, and that was fine. And I turned out okay living on being raised on that kind of diet. As I got older and a bit more independent and started living on my own, I probably explored a few more options, embraced a lot more vegetables in my diet. That's probably fair to say, but still the meat was central, and I would have meat with, apart from breakfast, I'd have meat with every meal, without fail. I don't think I ever, apart from maybe beans on toast, I don't think there was a vegetarian meal in there. Kat and I got together about 12 years ago now, and she was vegetarian at the time. And at that point, I think there was two main changes that I made to my diet. First and foremost was whenever we'd have a bolognese, chili, or something like that, it didn't make sense to obviously cook two different meals. So we'd have normally corn or supermarket-based meat alternatives to mince, and delicious, and you can't really tell the difference, to be fair. So I've never missed the meat in those type of dishes, and whenever we have that type of stuff, it's always with meat alternatives rather than minced beef. Second thing I think that happened was understanding a bit more about Kat's motivations and rationale behind being vegetarian. At that point, she's since gone vegan, and I think I made different choices in terms of the meat that I was buying. Less processed meat, tried to have a better understanding as to the quality of the meat that I was getting, and I think made different choices to ensure that the meat was more ethically produced and environmentally friendly and that kind of thing. So that does make things more expensive, and I was in a fortunate position that we were able to do that. And I appreciate that perhaps not everybody who sees this video will be in that position, but those were the sort of initial changes that I made. then a few years ago, and you might remember this, we did the company that I worked for at the time brought in a company that did food intolerance testing, and I was having some problems with my health at that point. So I did one of these tests, and the thing that came out as the sort of the biggest thing that I was intolerant to was dairy.
Oh, right.
And so as a result, I cut dairy out of my diet completely. Probably did cheat on the chocolate front a little bit, if I'm honest. But in terms of, I don't drink tea, yeah, I don't drink tea or coffee anyway. But in terms of like milk on my cereal, ice cream, things like that, try to look at alternatives. And yeah, I have the Oatly Barista Edition oat milk, and it's amazing. It tastes nicer than dairy milk, in my opinion. And it's all based on opinions, isn't it? But in my opinion, it's amazing. So that's all I have now. So
Brilliant.
again, apart from chocolate, and I keep banging on about that, but I probably don't have any dairy in my diet at all.
But it's good when you find something that, everyone wants to make positive changes, but if you try and make a change and that change isn't good for you, it doesn't taste nice, or it feels like it's a challenge to do it, then it makes it more difficult. If you find alternatives that actually are equal to or nicer, then you kind of think, well, I've got no need to go back to those things. And we've had a few of those over the last kind of few months as well, where we've changed certain things and thought, actually, no, I wouldn't go back to what we used before, because I'm actually quite happy with the taste and the fact that it's more ethically produced. So that's what it's all about, really, is finding those things that work for you. And if you try things and they don't work for you, then not feeling guilty about going back to stuff either. Is there anything that you think you found difficult about including more plants in your diet? Is there anything you found challenging, or has it been relatively straightforward?
It's definitely been made more straightforward by the fact that I live with a vegan. The kids are vegetarian as well, and so in that sense, it was made easy. I think the biggest challenge has been just the habit. That change. You're used to having meat with every lunch and with every dinner, and just breaking that cycle, if you like, and it not being strange. And I think it probably was strange for a long time, but it's been very gradual for me. And I think once January's finished, I will probably switch to a largely plant-based diet, but not exclusively.
Yes.
And but ensure that my view is that in a balanced diet, there's a place for ethically produced, sustainable, environmentally friendly meat products as well. I know, again, not everyone would agree with that philosophy, but for me, that works.
Absolute personal preference, isn't it? And I don't think anybody can kind of tell you how you need to adapt. It's just making adaptations that, as we've said, work for you, that you feel comfortable with. That as we've said, even if you're just changing one thing, it's progress, and that's kind of what it's all about, really. Is there anything that you think's made it easier? Obviously, living with a vegan is the principal one, but are there any products other than maybe like the Oatly Barista, or maybe some vegan chocolate? Who knows? But are there any other things that you've tried that you thought, actually, these products have made it much more simple, or it could be that we've discussed those already, and it's things like swapping your mince for Quorn as part of your bolognese and things like that. But is there anything else, do you think, that's made it easy?
Well, certainly over the last 3 or 4 years, especially, the range that you can get now of meat alternative products is ridiculous. Compared to what it was, and that's both in the supermarkets and when you eat out as well. The options are much greater than what they were, and that definitely helps. And I think, as well as the range, it's the quality as well. Quality perhaps is the wrong word. Maybe the taste as well, because I think historically, you look back at vegetarian alternative to things, and it was like eating cardboard sometimes. But things have got a lot better in that sense. We have vegan sausages, we have the Richmond sausages, there's loads of others out there, obviously, and it took probably a couple of meals to get used to them, and I definitely wouldn't say they're like the real thing, but they're fine, they're absolutely fine, and they're very tasty, and whether I'll have normal sausages again in the future, I don't know, probably will, but there's no issues around mixing it up a bit.
Brilliant. And do you think you've over the kind of years that you've been adapting your diet and eating more vegetables, more plant-based approach, are there any particular ingredients that you think are stand out, your favourites, things that you kind of maybe meals that you look forward to that are plant-based, or anything that kind of is good to have in the house, in the cupboard, that makes making those meals a little bit more simple, do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've tried to do in probably recent months, and this is the plan to continue this over in the future, is looking at more sort of whole foods, and looking at dishes as opposed to meals made up of various components, because I think that second way that is quite difficult, because, like I say, some of the meat alternative products aren't quite the same, and you don't get the same satisfaction when you have your food. But we've tried cooking a lot more oriental, well, we both love Wagamamas, so we're always in the Wagamamas cookbook and looking for things in there, and there's either lots of vegan and vegetarian dishes in there, or you can just leave out the meat that's supposed to be in there, and then it's all about taste and flavor then, isn't it? And I think if you're getting that satisfaction from your meals, then it almost you forget about the fact that there's no meat in there, because you just had something that's delicious. So we have lots of noodles type dishes, we have laxers, we have lots of quite spicy things. We're very fortunate our kids are not fussy eaters at all, so whatever we cook, they'll eat as well. So those kind of things we have an awful lot of now. So mealtimes are great because the food's really tasty, and it's largely meat free as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good recommendation about following some of those kind of cookbooks and recipes as well, and focusing on a more whole food approach is I guess the next step, really, isn't it? After you've tried making some swaps, it's kind of like, well, how can I make this nutritious, tasty and satisfying, but just build it into just my everyday? And I think that's the bit that I've not grasped that yet. So that's maybe the next step for me. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this, Stu. It's been great to talk to you, and it seems like you're making some massively positive changes in your own diet, and that you're really happy with the progress that you're making, which is brilliant. So thank you very much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.